I'm Jessica, 29, and I went from being my family's personal ATM to their biggest disappointment overnight. After years of financing their lives, one Thanksgiving dinner changed everything when my sister Heather publicly humiliated me in my own home. My mother's final words that night? "You're banned from family gatherings until you apologize." Little did they know, I controlled the purse strings that kept their comfortable lives afloat. Before I tell you how I went from family ATM to family outcast, drop a like and subscribe if you've ever had to choose between dignity and family. Let's see who else has dealt with ungrateful relatives. Growing up, we were what you'd call a typical middle-class American family. My father Robert worked in insurance sales, bringing home a decent income, while my mother Diane taught third grade at the local elementary school. We lived in a 4-bedroom house in a nice suburb outside of Boston, took modest vacations to Cape Cod each summer, and never really wanted for anything essential. Our family dynamic was clear from early on. My older sister Heather, now 32, was always the golden child. She was beautiful, popular, and could charm the birds from the trees. My parents beamed with pride at her social prowess and cheerleading trophies. Then there was my younger brother Tyler, now 25, the baby of the family who was coddled and protected from any real responsibility. Being the middle child, I quickly realized my role would be different. While Heather collected friends and Tyler collected toys, I collected A's. I was studious, determined, and frankly, a bit of a workaholic even in high school. My parents acknowledged my academic achievements with brief nods and the occasional good job, but they never generated the excitement of Heather's homecoming queen nomination or Tyler's participation trophy from Little League. When college came around, the differences in our paths became even more pronounced. Heather went to a state school where she joined a sorority and changed majors 3 times. I got a partial scholarship to Boston University and declared a finance major immediately. While my parents covered most of Heather's expenses, they made it clear that my scholarship meant I needed to handle more of my own costs. I worked 3 jobs during college, mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at the library, and weekends as a tutor. I graduated with honors, minimal debt, and a job offer from Wellington Investment Partners, a prestigious firm downtown. Meanwhile, Heather had graduated with a communications degree and moved back home while finding herself. My career took off like a rocket. Starting as an analyst, I quickly moved up to senior analyst, then associate portfolio manager by age 25. Each promotion came with substantial salary increases and bonuses. I worked 70-hour weeks, sacrificed my social life, and poured everything into building my career. Then the 2008 recession hit our family hard. Dad lost his job when his insurance company downsized. Their savings dwindled quickly, and at age 50, he struggled to find comparable work. Mom's teaching salary wasn't enough to cover the mortgage. That's when I stepped in for the first time. "It's just until Dad gets back on his feet," Mom assured me when I offered to help with their mortgage payment. But 1 month turned into 6, and 6 months turned into a year. By then, Tyler was starting college, and with my parents' financial situation still precarious, guess who paid his tuition? Meanwhile, Heather had gotten engaged to Brandon, a car salesman with big dreams and an empty bank account. When she called crying about not being able to afford her dream wedding, I opened my checkbook again. "You're an angel, Jess," she sobbed on the phone. "I'll pay you back every penny, I promise." Those promises of repayment from both Heather and Tyler became a running joke. The loans I provided were never acknowledged again after the money changed hands. When I gently brought up repayment to Tyler once, he looked genuinely confused. "But you make so much money," he said, brow furrowed. "It's not like you need it." My parents reinforced this mentality. "You're so blessed with your career, Jessica. It's good to share your blessings with family," my mother would say whenever I expressed any hesitation about another financial request. Gradually, I became the financial backbone of the entire family. I was paying my parents' mortgage, covering Tyler's graduate school expenses after he decided undergraduate education wasn't enough, helping Heather with childcare costs after she had her first baby, and providing regular emergency funds whenever anyone ran short. By my 28th birthday, I was covering approximately 70% of my family's collective expenses. My father had eventually found work as an office manager at a small company, making half his previous salary. My mother had retired early due to health concerns. Heather's husband Brandon was constantly between big opportunities, and Tyler was still finding his passion in his second master's program. I had mixed feelings about my role. On one hand, I felt proud that I could provide for my family and prevent them from struggling. On the other hand, a growing resentment simmered beneath the surface. While I lived in a nice but modest apartment and drove a practical car, my parents maintained their comfortable lifestyle. Tyler lived in a luxury student apartment, and Heather and Brandon took annual vacations to all-inclusive resorts. "You should come with us to Cancun this year," Heather would say, knowing full well I couldn't take time off from the job that was financing her trip. "You work too hard, Jess. You need to enjoy life more." The irony was never acknowledged. Despite being the financial support system for my entire family, respect was the one thing my money couldn't buy. The pattern of disrespect had become so normalized that I barely noticed it anymore, until my therapist pointed it out. Heather was the worst offender with her passive-aggressive comments, always delivered with a sweet smile that never reached her eyes. "Still no boyfriend, Jess? I guess not everyone can have it all. At least you have your career." The way she said career made it sound like a consolation prize rather than the achievement it was. When I mentioned having to reschedule our lunch because of an important client meeting, she'd sigh dramatically. "Must be nice to use work as an excuse to avoid family time. Some of us prioritize relationships." The fact that I'd rescheduled because I was securing a deal that would ultimately help pay for her son's private preschool tuition was apparently irrelevant. Tyler's disrespect took the form of entitlement. He never called just to check in, only when he needed something. His requests started with small amounts. "Hey sis, can you spot me $200 for books this semester?" But quickly escalated. "My roommate bailed and I need $3,000 for the security deposit on a new place by tomorrow." When I once suggested he get a part-time job to cover some of his expenses, the family response was swift and unified. "He needs to focus on his studies," my mother insisted. "You know how sensitive Tyler is," my father added. "He gets overwhelmed easily." Heather texted me privately, "Way to make him feel like crap. We can't all be workaholic robots like you." My parents consistently took my siblings' side in any disagreement. When Heather borrowed my designer handbag without asking and returned it stained, my mother said, "She has 2 children, Jessica. She doesn't have time to be precious about material things like you do." Family events operated on everyone else's schedule but mine. If I couldn't make a Sunday dinner because of work commitments, I was choosing money over family. But when Heather canceled last minute because she was too exhausted, or Tyler simply forgot to show up, they were given immediate understanding and compassion. The most glaring example was our birthday celebrations. Heather's birthday was treated like a national holiday, with weeks of planning, elaborate dinners, and thoughtful gifts. For my 28th birthday last year, I received a text message from my mother at 9:30 p.m., "Happy birthday, sweetie. Heather's son has a cold so we had to cancel the dinner we were going to surprise you with. We'll reschedule soon." They never did. When I tried to establish boundaries around money, the guilt trips began in earnest. "After all we've done for you," my father would say, conveniently forgetting that I'd paid their mortgage for the past 5 years. "Family helps family," my mother would insist. "When you have children of your own someday, you'll understand." The most uncomfortable aspect was how openly they discussed my money at family gatherings. "Jessica's paying for Tyler's summer program in Europe," my mother announced to extended family at a cousin's wedding. "Jessica just got another bonus," my father told his brother at a barbecue. "Hey Jess, maybe you can help Uncle Steve with that boat he's been wanting." In therapy, Dr. Reynolds helped me see that I was caught in a toxic cycle. "You keep giving money hoping to buy their respect and appreciation," she explained. "But they've learned they don't need to give you either to keep receiving the money." Still, I kept hoping things would change. Occasionally, there would be moments that kept that hope alive. Like when my father got teary-eyed after I helped him pay off a medical bill, or when Heather sent a handwritten thank you note after I covered her son's hospital expenses when he broke his arm. Those small moments of genuine gratitude were just enough to keep me tethered to the dynamic, even as the demands increased. In the past year alone, the financial requests had grown substantially. My parents wanted to renovate their kitchen. Heather and Brandon were looking at private schools for their children. Tyler was considering yet another degree program. I was making excellent money, but the constant outflow was affecting my own financial goals. I'd wanted to buy a house for years but kept delaying because my down payment fund became the family emergency fund. My retirement savings were well below where they should have been for someone at my income level. Family first, I told myself, pushing down the resentment that bubbled up each time I transferred money out of my accounts. Family first. After years of attending family gatherings at my parents' home or Heather's place, I decided it was finally time to host Thanksgiving myself. I had recently purchased a beautiful townhouse, the first major investment in my own future I'd made in years. With 3 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and a spacious dining area, it was perfect for entertaining. I spent weeks preparing. I researched recipes, decorated every inch of the house with tasteful fall-themed decor, and even hired a professional cleaner to make sure everything was spotless. I wanted this Thanksgiving to be perfect, maybe then my family would see me as more than just their financial safety net. The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke up at 5 a.m. to start the turkey. By noon, the house smelled amazing. Fresh-baked rolls were keeping warm in the oven, homemade cranberry sauce was chilling in the refrigerator, and my grandmother's china was set out on the table with polished silverware and crystal glasses I'd splurged on for the occasion. They were supposed to arrive at 2 p.m. By 2:45, no one had shown up and no one had called. At 3:12, I received a text from Heather, running late. Traffic. Be there soon. They finally arrived at 4 p.m., all together in my parents' car. No apologies for being 2 hours late. No acknowledgement that the carefully timed meal I'd prepared was now overcooked and dried out. The neighborhood isn't quite what I expected, my father commented as he hung up his coat. Seems a bit pretentious for a single person, don't you think? Before I could respond, Heather walked through the living room, eyeing my decor with a smirk. It's very hotel-like in here. Don't you want it to feel more homey? My mother headed straight for the kitchen. Oh, Jessica, you're using boxed gravy? I brought my homemade gravy just in case. And the turkey looks a bit dry, dear. Did you brine it first? I took a deep breath and smiled. It's been brining for 3 days, Mom. And I made the gravy from scratch this morning. Well, we'll just have both then, she said, placing her gravy boat prominently on the table. Tyler at least seemed impressed with the house, though his first question was whether the guest room would be his room when he visited. I'll probably crash here a lot when I'm on break, he announced, not asked. Throughout the meal, I kept waiting for someone to compliment the food, the decor, or even acknowledge the effort I'd put in. Instead, the conversation revolved around Heather's children's school achievements, Tyler's graduate program, and my parents' upcoming anniversary cruise, which I had paid for as an early gift. I was clearing the plates for dessert when Heather clinked her glass. Everyone, Brandon and I have an announcement to make. The table fell silent as everyone turned to her. We found the perfect vacation home in Cape Cod, she said, beaming. It's right on the water, with enough bedrooms for all the kids and guests. It's going to be amazing for summer gatherings. That's wonderful, honey, my mother exclaimed. When will you close on it? Heather's eyes slid to me. Well, that's the thing. We need a bit of help with the down payment. The market is so competitive right now, we need to move quickly. And there it was. The real reason for her excitement about my new home. The real reason she'd complimented my job promotion last month. She wasn't just making an announcement, she was making a pitch. How much are you looking for? I asked quietly. Just $30,000, she said, as if she were asking to borrow $5. We'll pay you back, of course. Once Brandon's new business venture takes off. Brandon nodded enthusiastically. It's a sure thing, Jess. I've got investors lined up. The same story I'd heard for years. I looked around the table and saw expectant faces. They were all waiting for me to say yes, as I always did. Something inside me finally broke. I'm sorry, but I can't, I said. The silence that followed was deafening. What do you mean, you can't? Heather asked, her voice rising slightly. I mean, I can't give you $30,000 for a vacation home when I've just bought my first house. I have my own expenses to consider. Heather's face flushed. Are you serious right now? It's not like you can't afford it. You make more than all of us combined. That doesn't mean my money is communal property, I replied, trying to keep my voice level. I've helped with emergencies and necessities, but a vacation home is a luxury. Wow, Heather said with a bitter laugh. Just wow. So this is who you really are. What is that supposed to mean? I asked. You know exactly what it means, she spat. You've always been cold. Always been selfish. You use your money to control everyone because you have nothing else in your life. No husband, no children, nothing but your precious career and your perfect empty house. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not fair. It's completely fair, my father interrupted. We've all been thinking it. You've changed, Jessica. Success has gone to your head. Gone to my head? I repeated incredulously. I paid your mortgage for 5 years. I paid for Heather's wedding and Tyler's tuition. How is that having success go to my head? There it is, my mother said sadly. Throwing it in our faces. We're your family, Jessica. Family supports each other without keeping score. I'm not keeping score, I protested. But there has to be a limit. The only limit is your selfishness, Heather snapped. You sit in your big house with your big salary and judge the rest of us for needing help. You think you're better than us. I've never said or thought that, I said, feeling tears threatening. You don't have to say it. It's obvious in everything you do, Heather continued. The way you sigh when Tyler asks for help. The way you hesitated when Mom and Dad needed their roof fixed. You make us feel like burdens. Because sometimes it feels like I am just a checkbook to all of you, I finally admitted. When was the last time any of you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked about my day or my life? It's always about what I can give. My mother stood up, her face tight with anger. I think we should go. I won't sit here and listen to these accusations. Mom, please, I said, realizing this was spiraling out of control. No, Jessica. Until you can apologize for these hurtful comments, I think it's best you don't come to family gatherings. We don't need your money with strings attached. There are no strings attached. I protested. I just can't buy a vacation home for Heather. It's not about the vacation home, my father said, also standing. It's about your attitude. Your mother's right. Until you can apologize and adjust your attitude, you're banned from family gatherings. I watched in shock as they all stood up. Tyler couldn't even meet my eyes as he followed my parents to the door. Heather gave me one last contemptuous look. Enjoy your perfect house and your perfect life, she said. All alone. The door slammed behind them, leaving me standing in my dining room surrounded by half-eaten pumpkin pie and cold turkey. I sank into a chair, my entire body shaking. For the first time in my adult life, I spent a holiday completely alone. And as the tears finally came, something else emerged through the pain: clarity. Crystal clear clarity about my family and my place in it. The day after Thanksgiving, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by leftover food no one had stayed to enjoy, feeling numb. My phone had been silent, no calls, no texts, not even an acknowledgement of what had happened. It was as if I'd been completely excised from the family for the crime of saying no once. When my phone finally did ring around noon, I lunged for it, hoping it was my mother or even Heather calling to make peace. Instead, it was my best friend Amanda. "How was the big family Thanksgiving?" she asked cheerfully. I burst into tears and told her everything. "Jesus, Jess," she said when I finished. "I'm coming over right now." An hour later, we sat on my couch with glasses of wine as I showed her text messages and emails from the past few years, all the financial requests, the thin thank yous, the subsequent requests that came faster and larger. "Have you ever calculated exactly how much money you've given them?" Amanda asked. I shook my head. I've been afraid to look too closely. It would feel like I was, I don't know, keeping score? Amanda supplied. "Honey, there's a difference between keeping score and recognizing exploitation." That word, exploitation, hit me hard. I'd never allowed myself to think of it that way. After Amanda left, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I opened my financial software and created a new spreadsheet. Methodically, I went through 5 years of bank statements and credit card bills, tracking every dollar I'd given to my family members. The number that stared back at me from the screen made me physically ill: $347,892. Nearly $350,000 in 5 years. Money that could have fully funded my retirement account. Money that could have been invested. Money that had flowed one way, out of my accounts and into my family's hands, with nothing coming back. Not even basic respect or appreciation. The next day, I made an appointment with my financial advisor, Linda. She'd been gently suggesting for years that I needed to establish better boundaries with my family, but I'd always brushed off her concerns. "I was afraid this day would come," Linda said after I explained what had happened. "Jessica, do you realize you've delayed your own financial goals by approximately 7 years because of these family obligations?" She showed me projections of where my net worth could have been versus where it actually was. The difference was staggering. "But that's not even the worst part," she continued. "You've enabled a situation where your family has no incentive to improve their own financial habits. Why should they budget or save when they have you as a safety net?" I spent the next week researching topics I'd avoided for years: financial enabling, toxic family dynamics, emotional manipulation, and boundaries. I read books and articles that could have been written specifically about my situation. I joined online forums where others shared similar experiences. The more I read, the more I recognized the patterns in my own family. The guilt trips. The entitlement. The way monetary gifts were never acknowledged but always expected. Dr. Matthews, my therapist, helped me understand the psychological aspects when I met with her the following week. "What you're describing is a classic case of financial exploitation disguised as family obligation," she explained. "They've weaponized the concept of family to access your resources without reciprocating emotionally or otherwise." "But they're not bad people," I protested weakly. "They're my family." "This isn't about them being bad people," Dr. Matthews said gently. "This is about a dysfunctional system that everyone has participated in, including you. You've derived some sense of value and importance from being the provider, haven't you?" Her question made me uncomfortable because it contained a kernel of truth. Part of me had enjoyed being needed, being the successful one, the responsible one. But that satisfaction had curdled as the demands increased and the appreciation decreased. "What do I do now?" I asked. "That depends on what you want," she replied. "But whatever you decide, it needs to start with reclaiming your financial independence. Money is being used as a control mechanism in your family, both by them and, to some extent, by you." That night, I sat alone in my home office and made the hardest decision of my life. I would cut off the financial support, all of it. Cold turkey. I knew it would likely mean the permanent end of my family relationships. I knew I would be painted as the villain. But for the first time, I also knew with absolute certainty that I deserved better than what I had been accepting. As this realization solidified, my sadness began to transform into something else: anger. Pure, clarifying anger at years of being used and taken for granted. At having my generosity exploited and then being called selfish when I finally set a boundary. I was done being the family ATM. It was time for everyone to face reality. I approached dismantling my family's financial dependence the same way I approached my investment portfolios, with careful strategy and methodical execution. First, I made a comprehensive list of all the automatic payments, joint accounts, and financial commitments I had established with various family members. My parents' mortgage payment, automatic withdrawal on the first of each month. Their utility bills, automatic payments. Their cell phone family plan, under my name. Tyler's tuition payments, due each semester. Tyler's apartment rent, automatic withdrawal. Heather's children's private school tuition, quarterly payments. Various credit cards I had co-signed or was an authorized user on. The list was longer than I had realized. Over the years, I had become financially entangled with my family in ways that went beyond simple gifts or loans. My next step was to consult with a lawyer. I needed to understand any legal obligations I might have and how to extricate myself without creating liability. In most cases, you have no legal obligation to continue these payments, Attorney Wilson explained. The exception might be any formal agreements you've signed, like co-signing loans. For those, you'll need to work with the family member to refinance or find alternative arrangements. Armed with legal advice, I spent a weekend securing my financial information. I changed passwords on all my accounts, removed my credit cards from any shared online services, and set up fraud alerts with the credit bureaus in case anyone tried to use my information without permission. Then came the hard part, actually cutting off the automatic payments. I started with the smallest ones first, canceling the Netflix, Hulu, and Spotify family subscriptions I'd been paying for. Within 48 hours, I received my first confused text from Tyler. "Hey, something's wrong with Netflix. Says the account is canceled?" I took a deep breath and called him instead of texting back. He needed to hear my voice for this. "It's not wrong, Tyler. I've canceled the subscription." "Oh." A pause. "Can you restart it?" "I'm in the middle of a series." "No, I can't. Tyler, I'm making some changes to my financial commitments. I won't be paying for subscription services anymore." "Is this about Thanksgiving? Are you seriously that petty?" And there it was, the immediate pivot to make me the villain. "This isn't petty, Tyler. This is me establishing boundaries that should have been in place years ago." "Whatever," he said, and hung up. Similar conversations followed as, one by one, family members discovered the changes. My mother called when the electricity bill bounced back unpaid. "There must be some mistake with the automatic payment," she said. "It's not a mistake, Mom. I've canceled the automatic payment." "But, why would you do that?" "Because I'm no longer going to be financially responsible for the family. Everyone needs to pay their own bills now." "Jessica, if this is about what happened at Thanksgiving." "It's about a pattern that's been going on for years, Mom. Thanksgiving was just the final straw." "So you're punishing us? Taking away our electricity because Heather hurt your feelings?" "I'm not taking away your electricity. You and Dad have incomes. You can pay your own electric bill." The conversation ended with my mother in tears, calling me cruel and heartless. My father was next, calling about the mortgage payment. "Your mother is beside herself," he said. "I can't believe you would do this to us. Dad, I've been paying your mortgage for 5 years. It was never supposed to be permanent. We're your parents, Jessica. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? Besides criticize my life choices and take my money?" That call ended with him hanging up on me. The most dramatic confrontation came from Heather, who actually showed up at my workplace 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I was called out of a meeting to find her standing in the reception area, face flushed with anger. You need to stop this right now, she hissed when I approached. The school called me yesterday saying Aiden and Emma's tuition hasn't been paid for next semester. Lower your voice, I said calmly. This is my workplace. I don't care. You're trying to punish my children because you're jealous of my life. Security was eyeing us nervously, so I guided Heather to a small conference room. Your children's education is your responsibility, Heather. Not mine. You promised you would help with their school. I offered to help when you were going through your divorce from your first husband. That was 3 years ago. You've remarried, and Brandon claims to make good money. This is no longer my responsibility. We can't afford private school on our own. Then they'll go to public school, like we did. Her face crumpled. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching us struggle? No, Heather. I don't enjoy this at all. But things have to change. Tyler tried a different approach a few days later, showing up at my house with tears in his eyes. I don't understand, Jess. I thought you wanted me to get an education. Now I'm going to have to drop out. I supported your undergraduate degree, Tyler. And your first master's degree. This third degree is on you. But I can't afford it. Then get a job. Or take out loans like most students do. Or take a break until you can afford it. After everything you've done, you're just going to abandon me halfway through? The guilt trip was so transparent it almost made me laugh. I'm not abandoning you. I'm expecting you to take responsibility for your own life choices. As the financial reality set in, my family moved from anger to panic. My mother called daily, alternating between tears and rage. My father sent long emails about family duty and ungrateful children. Heather tried to leverage her children, sending me artwork they had made and photos with sad faces. When the individual approaches failed, they attempted a united front. My mother organized a family meeting at their house and insisted I attend. I agreed, but on my terms, in a public restaurant, not their home. The meeting was tense from the start. All 4 of them sat across from me, faces grim, as if confronting a criminal. We need to discuss this situation rationally, my father began. Your actions are causing real harm to this family. I opened my laptop and turned it toward them. Before we start, I'd like to show you something. On the screen was my spreadsheet detailing every dollar I'd given them over the past 5 years, categorized by recipient and purpose. In the past 5 years, I've given this family $347,892, I said quietly. That's not including birthday gifts, Christmas presents, or dinners out that I paid for. That's direct financial support. They stared at the numbers in silence. I'm not showing you this to throw it in your faces, as you've accused me of doing. I'm showing you because I don't think any of you have really understood the extent of the support I've provided. We never asked for most of that, Heather protested weakly. I scrolled through the spreadsheet to her section. Heather, in the past 3 years, you've sent me 72 text messages specifically asking for money. I've documented each one with dates and amounts. Her face flushed red. The point isn't to embarrass you, I continued. The point is to make it clear that this was not occasional help during emergencies. This was systematic financial dependence. So what do you want from us? My father asked, his voice tight. Groveling gratitude? Public acknowledgement of your generosity? No, I said. I want you all to become financially independent. I want you to make your own choices based on your own resources. And I want to be treated with basic respect, not as a convenient ATM. And if we can't become financially independent, as you put it, my mother asked, then you'll need to make the same hard choices that most adults make every day. Downsize. Budget. Cut luxuries. Get second jobs. The things I've been telling you to do for years. The meeting ended with an ultimatum, from them, not me. Either you resume supporting this family, or you're no longer part of it, my father said as they prepared to leave. Those are the terms, Jessica. I looked at each of their faces, my mother's tearful manipulation, my father's stern disapproval, Heather's seething resentment, Tyler's sullen avoidance. "Then I guess I'm no longer part of it," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the pain tearing through my chest. As they walked away, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my Aunt Rachel, my mother's sister, who had always been the family outsider. "I heard what happened. You did the right thing. Call me if you need to talk." It was the first support I'd received from anyone connected to my family, and it meant more than Aunt Rachel could possibly know. The weeks after cutting financial ties with my family were some of the most emotionally turbulent of my life. The initial anger and hurt on both sides evolved into something more complex and, in many ways, more painful. My family's reaction progressed in distinct stages. First came disbelief and anger, which quickly transitioned to panic as bills went unpaid and financial realities set in. Then, most predictably, came the attempts at manipulation. Heather was the first to change tactics. 2 weeks after our confrontation at the restaurant, she showed up at my house on a Sunday morning, looking uncharacteristically humble in a simple sweater and jeans instead of her usual designer outfits. "Can we talk?" she asked when I opened the door. "Just sisters. No money talk, I promise." Against my better judgment, I let her in. For the first hour, it was almost like old times. She asked about my work, commented on my house decor without snide remarks, and even showed genuine interest in my recent promotion. I found myself cautiously enjoying her company, remembering the sister I'd once been close to. Then came the pivot. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, setting down her coffee cup. "About Thanksgiving and everything after. I wasn't fair to you." I was genuinely surprised. "Thank you for saying that. You've always been so generous with us," she continued. "I think we all took that for granted." I definitely did. She reached for my hand across the kitchen island. "I'm sorry, Jess. Truly." For a moment, I felt a weight lift from my chest. Maybe reconciliation was possible after all. "The thing is," she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone, "Brandon and I are in a really tough spot right now. The kids' school is threatening to dismiss them if the tuition isn't paid by Friday, and our mortgage is 2 months behind." And there it was. The real reason for the visit. "Heather," I started. "I'm not asking for a handout," she interrupted quickly. "Just a loan. A real loan this time, with a payment plan and everything. Once we get through this rough patch, things will be different. I promise." I gently withdrew my hand from hers. "I can't do that. I meant what I said about establishing boundaries." Her face transformed instantly, the mask of contrition replaced by cold anger. "Fine. I tried to be nice about this, but you're forcing my hand. The kids are asking why Aunt Jessica hates them now. Is that what you want? For children to think they're being punished? That's manipulative and you know it," I said. "Your children aren't being punished. Their parents are being asked to take financial responsibility for them, as parents should." She left in a fury, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall and shattered. My brother's situation deteriorated quickly. Without my support, he couldn't afford both tuition and his luxury apartment. He was forced to drop out of his program and move to a shared apartment with 3 roommates. "I had to get a job waiting tables," he texted me. "Is this what you wanted? To see me humiliated?" I didn't respond. The fact that at 25 he considered having a job humiliating spoke volumes about the entitled mindset I'd helped create. My parents faced the most serious consequences. Without my contributions to their mortgage, they quickly fell behind. By month 3, they were facing possible foreclosure, again. "We're too old to start over," my mother sobbed during one of her daily calls. "Where will we go if we lose the house?" "You could downsize to a smaller place," I suggested. "Most people your age do that anyway." "We shouldn't have to," she cried. "Not when our daughter has more than enough money to help." These direct appeals evolved into a more coordinated campaign. Extended family members I rarely spoke with suddenly called or emailed, expressing concern about my parents' situation. "Your mother tells me things are strained between you," my uncle wrote. "Whatever disagreement you're having, surely it's not worth letting your parents lose their home." I began to realize how extensively my mother had been controlling the family narrative for years. In her version, I was the cold-hearted daughter who had achieved success and then abandoned her loving family in their time of need. The campaign extended to social media, where Heather posted thinly veiled comments about people who forget where they came from and the true meaning of family. Some distant relatives and family friends began sending me concerned messages or leaving judgmental comments on my posts. I locked down my social media accounts and focused on my work, throwing myself into projects and staying late at the office most nights. It was easier than coming home to an empty house and a silent phone. Despite the personal turmoil, my professional life thrived. The extra time and emotional energy I'd previously spent managing my family's finances and crises was now channeled into my career. I secured 2 major new clients, received an unexpected mid-year bonus, and was being considered for another promotion. "Your performance has been exceptional these past few months," my boss commented during a review. "Whatever changes you've made in your life, they're working professionally." I didn't tell him that the change was excising my family from my life. As Christmas approached, the first holiday season I would spend entirely alone, the emptiness of my house began to feel oppressive. I decorated a small tree but couldn't muster the enthusiasm to put up any other decorations. What was the point when no one would see them? On Christmas Eve, as I sat alone with a glass of wine watching old movies, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my entire family standing there, along with 2 of my aunts and an uncle. "What's going on?" I asked, immediately wary. "We're here to talk sense into you," my father said. "May we come in?" Against my better judgment, I let them in. They filed into my living room, taking seats as if this had been rehearsed, which, I soon realized, it had. "Jessica," my mother began, "this has gone on long enough. We're your family, and families work through their problems together." "We've all discussed it," Aunt Patty added, "and we're concerned about your behavior. This vendetta against your family isn't healthy." One by one, they took turns explaining how my actions had hurt everyone, how my sudden cruelty had destabilized the family, and how my obsession with money was destroying relationships. It was a well-orchestrated intervention, not for an addiction or destructive behavior, but for my audacity in establishing financial boundaries. When they finished, they looked at me expectantly, waiting for tears, apologies, promises to resume the status quo. Instead, I stood up, my hands perfectly steady. "Thank you all for coming and sharing your thoughts," I said calmly. "Now I'd like to share mine." I looked at each face in turn before continuing. "For years, I've been treated as nothing more than a financial resource by this family. My generosity was expected, not appreciated. My boundaries were ignored. My concerns were dismissed." "That's not true," Heather started. I held up a hand. "I'm speaking now. You've all had your turn." The room fell silent again. When I finally set a boundary, a single no after years of yes, I was attacked, insulted, and ultimately excommunicated from the family. That tells me everything I need to know about my place in this family. I was never valued as a person, only as a checkbook. "We love you, Jessica," my mother insisted, tears welling in her eyes. "You may believe that," I replied. "But your actions tell a different story. Love doesn't demand financial support as a condition. Love doesn't use guilt and manipulation to control. And love certainly doesn't organize family interventions to force someone back into an exploitative relationship." I walked to the door and opened it. "I appreciate you all coming here tonight, but this discussion is over. I won't be resuming financial support. If that means I'm no longer welcome in this family, that's a choice you're making, not me." My father stood, face flushed with anger. "Is this your final word on the matter?" "It is." "Then you've made your choice," he said. "Don't expect us to be there when you realize how empty your life is without family." One by one, they filed out. Only my Aunt Rachel lingered behind. "For what it's worth," she whispered, "I'm proud of you. It took me years to set boundaries with your mother, and she's my sister. You're doing the right thing." After they left, I sat alone in my quiet house, expecting to feel devastated. Instead, I felt something unexpected: liberation. For the first time in years, I was free from the constant weight of everyone else's financial needs and emotional manipulation. The choice had been painful, but it was mine. And despite the emptiness of my house on Christmas Eve, I felt more at peace than I had in years. 6 months passed after the Christmas Eve confrontation. Spring arrived, then summer, bringing with it new rhythms to my life. The most noticeable change was the silence: no more daily calls with financial emergencies, no more urgent texts about unexpected expenses, no more guilt-laden family dinners. At first, the silence was deafening. I would check my phone compulsively, expecting to see messages or missed calls. I'd find myself mentally calculating how much I should transfer to cover my parents' property tax bill, or wondering if Tyler had enough for his summer courses, before remembering that these weren't my responsibilities anymore. Gradually, the silence transformed from uncomfortable to peaceful. I established new routines centered around my own needs and interests. I joined a book club that met on Wednesday evenings, a time I'd previously reserved for my weekly check-in call with my mother. I took a cooking class on Saturdays instead of spending the day helping my father with house maintenance or attending my niece and nephew's activities. Most significantly, I took my first real vacation in 7 years, 2 weeks in Italy, exploring Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. As I sat on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, sipping wine and watching the sunset, I realized that this trip had been paid for with money I would have otherwise given to Heather for her vacation home down payment. The irony wasn't lost on me. My therapist noted the physical changes as well. "You look younger," Dr. Matthews commented during one of our sessions. "The tension you used to carry in your shoulders and jaw is gone." My financial situation improved dramatically. Without the constant outflow of funds to my family, I was able to fully fund my retirement accounts, establish a robust emergency fund, and even start investing in additional properties. Linda, my financial advisor, was thrilled. "You're on track to retire at 55 if you want to," she told me during our quarterly review. "That's a 10-year improvement from where you were a year ago." Throughout these months, I received occasional updates about my family through Aunt Rachel, who had become something of a lifeline to the past I'd left behind. "Your parents finally sold the house," she reported during one of our monthly lunch dates. "They've downsized to a condo closer to town. Your mother complains about the size, but your father seems relieved to have less maintenance." "And Heather?" "Brandon actually stepped up. He's working 2 jobs now, still at the car dealership, but he's also bartending on weekends. They moved the kids to public school, which Heather acts like is a tragedy, but the children seem to be adjusting fine." "What about Tyler?" "Still working at that restaurant, but he's been promoted to shift manager. He's talking about going back to school eventually, but paying his own way this time. Community college, though, not another expensive graduate program." Each update brought mixed emotions. Part of me felt vindicated; they had survived without my money after all. Another part felt sad that it had taken such a dramatic rupture to force these changes. And a small, complicated part felt almost resentful that they were adapting and improving their lives without me. "That's natural," Dr. Matthews assured me when I confessed these feelings. "You're mourning the role you played in their lives, even though it wasn't a healthy one." The silence from my family remained unbroken until late August, when an unexpected envelope arrived in my mail. Inside was a card with my mother's distinctive handwriting. "Jessica," it read, "I've written and torn up this letter a dozen times. Pride is a difficult thing to overcome, especially at my age. But I can't let more time pass without acknowledging some hard truths. The past 6 months have forced your father and me to confront our financial reality. It's been humbling and, at times, frightening. But it's also been necessary. We should never have allowed ourselves to become so dependent on you. More importantly, we should never have taken your generosity for granted. I won't pretend that everything is fine between us. There are still hurt feelings on all sides. But I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. It wasn't cruel, as I accused you of being. It was necessary. If you're open to it, I would like to meet for coffee sometime. Just to talk. No financial discussions, no expectations. Just a mother and daughter trying to find their way back to each other. With love, Mom. I read the letter multiple times, searching for the manipulative undertones I'd become so adept at identifying. But there were none, or at least, none that I could detect. It seemed genuinely reflective. I waited a week before responding, using the time to process my feelings with Dr. Matthews and consider what boundaries I would need in place for any potential reconciliation. Finally, I sent a brief email agreeing to meet at a neutral coffee shop the following weekend. I ended it with, "Just to be clear, this meeting doesn't mean I'm resuming financial support. If that's the expectation, we should save ourselves the time." Her response was immediate, "No financial expectations. I just miss my daughter." The coffee meeting was awkward but civil. We stayed on safe topics, her new condo, my recent work projects, a movie she'd seen. No mention was made of Heather or Tyler, or of the money that had come between us. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. It was a start. Over the following months, tentative steps toward reconciliation continued. My father joined my mother for our next meeting. Tyler reached out via text, asking if I wanted to grab lunch sometime. Only Heather maintained her distance, still apparently nursing her resentment. These new relationships were fundamentally different from before. There was a carefulness on both sides, an awareness of the fragility of our connection. Money was never discussed directly, but its absence as a topic hung in the air between us. I established clear boundaries from the outset. Family gatherings were attended on my terms. I would arrive when I could and leave when I wanted. I declined invitations that didn't work with my schedule without offering explanations or apologies. When personal topics came up, I shared only what I was comfortable sharing. Most importantly, I made it clear that my financial situation was entirely off limits for discussion. The first time my mother made a casual reference to Tyler struggling with his car payment, I immediately stood up. "We agreed no financial discussions," I said. "If that's changed, I need to know now." She backtracked quickly. You're right. I wasn't hinting. Old habits. Not all family members were receptive to the new boundaries. Heather continued to keep her distance, apparently unwilling to accept a relationship that didn't include financial benefits. Some extended family members who had sided against me remained cool at gatherings. But surprisingly, many relationships improved in the absence of financial entanglement. My conversations with Tyler became more genuine as he shared his actual experiences instead of manufactured crises designed to elicit money. My father and I discovered shared interests in history and politics that had been overshadowed by financial discussions. As Thanksgiving approached again, a full year after the blow-up that had changed everything, I faced a decision. My mother had tentatively invited me to dinner at their new condo. It would be smaller than previous gatherings, she assured me. Just family, no guests to witness any potential tension. Heather will be there, she added. With the kids. I've told her there's to be no drama. I considered my options carefully. Attending meant facing Heather for the first time since our confrontation. It meant potentially subjecting myself to passive-aggressive comments or outright hostility. It meant risking a replay of last year's disaster. But declining meant choosing continued estrangement. It meant missing the chance to see if genuine family connections could be rebuilt on healthier foundations. After discussing it with Dr. Matthews, I decided to attend, but on my terms. I would drive separately so I could leave if necessary. I would bring a dish but no gifts. And I would maintain a pleasant but firm demeanor regardless of provocation. The most important thing to remember, Dr. Matthews advised, is that you're choosing to attend because you want to, not because you're obligated to. That's the difference between the old Jessica and the new one. As Thanksgiving approached, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past year. I had lost and regained family connections, but more importantly, I had found something I hadn't realized was missing: self-respect. By saying no to financial exploitation, I had finally said yes to myself. Whether the upcoming Thanksgiving would be a disaster or the beginning of a new chapter remained to be seen. But whatever happened, I would face it as a stronger, more centered person than I had been a year ago. The true value of family, I had learned, couldn't be measured in dollars. It could only be measured in respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. Sometimes walking away was necessary to discover who would walk back toward you for the right reasons. As I look back on this journey, I have to ask, have you ever had to choose between your own well-being and someone else's expectations? Would you have made the same choice I did? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts, and if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Remember that sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps anyone facing similar struggles to find their own strength.